This is the fish broiler. It's built right into the stove. And this is a Japanese kitchen. There are many things like this and others you won't find in your kitchen. But this is strange. We Japanese people eat meat, vegetables, and bread, just like you do. So today, I want to take a closer look at a very Japanese kitchen. We actually have 2 of them in this house. So let's go through them one by one, 2 by 2, and find out where these differences come from. Okay, so this is newer of our 2 kitchens. We will get to the older one in a bit, but let's start here. The first thing you notice when looking at the Japanese kitchen as a whole is that it usually does not have the kind of large standalone oven you often find in a kitchen. In many Japanese homes, the oven comes in the form of an oven-microwave combo like this. Right, so here's a touch panel. There is an oven here, as you see. And when we use this as the oven, we basically pick the menu from here like this. So for instance, I'm going to choose a pizza like this. Can you see? It's in Japanese, but you can understand based on the picture. So press the pizza. There's like a lot of options. What kind of pizza you want to make? Crispy pizza, Christmas tree pizza, snack pizza. Yeah, many. So I pick a crispy pizza. And this. Alright, I want to do it. And this is how strong the fire is. Just like basic. And then it takes 18 minutes to prepare. Now this microwave is changed to oven. You don't see it, but yeah, it's warming at the moment. I can hear the sound. In other words, in Japanese kitchen, the oven is not placed there as the main character from the start. So then what takes that center role instead in a Japanese kitchen? Once you start looking at that, you begin to see what Japanese kitchens are really designed for. Well, one of the first things that stand out is a rice cooker here. In the kitchen, it might feel like just another convenient appliance, something nice to have. But in a Japanese kitchen, it has much stronger presence. This is because rice is still at the center of Japanese meals. But of course, we eat bread, we eat pasta too. But when you think about everyday home cooking in Japan, rice is still very often the foundation of the meal. And once you realize that, it makes sense that the rice cooker fits into the kitchen as it belongs there almost as a given. So in other words, in the Japanese kitchen, the starting point is often not what are we going to bake. But first, let's cook the rice and then think about what dishes to have with it. So here, the rice cooker is placed not as just another appliance as you see, but as something more fundamental. We also have the place just sit for the rice cooker. Something that supports everyday meals, and already you can start to see that what sits at the center of the kitchen is a little different from what you might find in your home kitchen. If rice is at the center of everyday meal, then you would expect Japanese kitchen to have a lot of rice in them. So where is all that rice kept? In my home, it is right here. Like in many older Japanese kitchens, there is a sliding drawer under the stove, and inside it is a built-in rice storage bin. It is designed to hold a large amount of rice, I think roughly 2 kilograms. And when you press the button here on top, the rice drops down automatically. This may be another idea that appears unfamiliar in overseas kitchen. But in Japan, rice is not treated as some special ingredient, as I told you. So it's something people expect to use every day. So instead of storing it away elsewhere, it is often built naturally into the kitchen itself from the start. Right, so another key feature of the Japanese kitchen is the fish grill. This one. There may be no large standalone oven as I told you, but at the same time, many Japanese kitchens come with built-in grill specifically for cooking fish. When you think about it, it's pretty interesting. Oven cooking is not at the center of the kitchen. Yet a tool for grilling fish is built in from the start. That reflects the assumptions behind the Japanese meals very clearly, isn't it? In Japan, grilled fish has long been a very natural part of home cooking. Maybe not every single day, of course, but the act of grilling fish itself is something very familiar. So in Japanese kitchens, having a way to grill fish as part of everyday meals may have simply been more practical than having a large space for oven-based cooking.
お魚こんがり焼けるっていうか、そういうのが良くて使ってますよ。やっぱり焼きナスとお魚ぐらいがメインですよね。
As you start looking around like this, you realize that the Japanese kitchens are still, full of tools shaped by different ways of eating. And this is not just about traditional dishes like grilled fish. Even more everyday foods like fried dishes have their own very natural place in the Japanese kitchen. Fried food, as I just introduced, is extremely common in Japan too. Tempura, karaage, tonkatsu. These are not just special occasion dishes, they appear on the family table very regularly. And within that fried food culture, one tool that appears is the oil pot. Right here. Bit heavy, I'm not sure you see. I'm not sure we used to use it nowadays. So this is the oil pot. In Japan, people often do not throw away frying oil right after using it. Instead, they strain out the small bits left in the oil and reuse it later. Since disposing of oil can be a bit troublesome in Japan, so reusing it like this helps avoid the extra hassle. And before we move to the next part of the kitchen, I want to take a short break and show you another way to experience Japanese food culture at home. And that's connects very well to today's sponsor, Sakurako. Every month, Sakurako brings a new taste of Japan into my kitchen. And this month, the theme is Flavor of Okinawa. Okinawa is famous for its emerald coastline, tropical atmosphere and very unique food culture. And you can find those tastes in this box with treats like Okinawa pineapple jelly, benimu pie, and sakura kokuto manju. My favorite this month is this one, chinsuko. Well, chinsuko is a very traditional Okinawa sweet and almost every Japanese person knows. Oishii. So tasting it with Sanpin tea, which is also included in this box and closely connected to Okinawa, feels really nice. This month also comes with an exclusive homeware item, this Okinawa kozuru plate, which makes the experience feel even more complete. And don't forget, each box also comes with cultural booklet. It explains each snack, includes allergy information, and also shares interesting details about the region and Japanese culture behind the box. So if you want to experience the flavors of Okinawa at home, check out the link below and use my code JAPANWITHNOW to get $5 off your first Sakurako box. Thank you again to Sakurako for sponsoring this video. So now let's go back to the kitchen tour. So at this point, another very typical Japanese cooking tool is cooking chopsticks. I think we have here, like this one. In your kitchen, this might be the kind of moment where you would reach for tongs. I do have tongs in my kitchen too. Yeah, we also have tongs here. But when it comes to handling a fish, moving something hot slightly, or plating food carefully, what we reach for is usually cooking chopsticks. Because we basically use chopsticks every day. So even though it's very long, it's very easy to use. In Japan, these long chopsticks are very commonly used while cooking. We use them when handling grilled fish, turning fried food, moving hot ingredient, or adjusting the position of something. Cooking chopsticks are not some special or unusual tool. They are simply one of the essentials of cooking in Japan. When grilled fish is served in Japan, there is something that often appears beside it. Do you know what it is? For people from overseas, maybe like you, seeing grated radish served next to fish may look a little unusual, but in Japan, this is a very standard combination. Sometimes we add a little soy sauce and eat them together. Sometimes it is simply there as a refreshing side that lightens the taste in your mouth. And because that way of eating is so normal, many Japanese kitchens have daikon grater as well. And this is very interesting too. You probably eat radish in your country as well, but even when the ingredient itself is the same, in Japan, it can appear on the table in a completely different form. In other words, many of the differences in Japanese kitchen tools do not come from different ingredients actually, but from different ways of eating them as well. Right, so looking at all of this, you can see that Japanese kitchens contain many tools shaped by different ways of cooking. But I guess Japanese uniqueness does not show up only in the cooking itself. It also appears very clearly in how food is arranged and how it is eaten. For example, right here, when you look at a Japanese kitchen, one thing you notice is just how many dishes there are. But it's not simply that there are few, large plates, there are like small plates, small bowls, medium-sized plates, like deep bowls, shallow dishes as well. The tableware is divided quite finely depending on the kind of food. That's simply because in Japan, as you know, instead of putting everything together on one large plate, it feels much more natural to separate each part of the meal. Rice is rice, soup is soup, the grilled fish is grilled fish, side dishes are side dishes. So the large number of dishes, as you see, is not just about having more object. It reflects a different way of structuring the meal itself. So maybe what's the unique plate? So this is the ramen bowl. Maybe if you eat ramen in your home, you have that. This one, ramen bowl. So this is like typical small plate, and we put like small vegetable here. This is not the smallest. Wait a moment. Okay, so look at these. These are very clear example, I've heard. It's really small, as you see. This. Just put, for instance, like plum or like sesame powder or whatever. Anything. Sometimes we put like small amount of vegetable here as well. You can see how small this dish is. This is the plate. We basically place the grilled fish on it. And here again, you start to see that the Japanese kitchen is not just a place for cooking. It is also shaped by the way food is meant to be arranged on the table. And once you start paying attention to those like smaller details of the dining table, there is one more interesting thing that comes into view. And that is chopstick rest. People overseas, chopsticks themselves may already feel familiar, but the idea of having a small like object whose like only purpose is to hold the chopsticks might seem a little amusing, maybe a bit strange. But in Japan, this is also a very natural part of the table. So inside here, there are all kinds of chopsticks. Some are slightly different in length, some are different in color, and some have patterns, while others are very simple. At first, you might wonder whether it is really necessary to separate them this much. And honestly, you could eat with identical chopsticks just fine. But in many Japanese households, each person often has their own chopstick that they naturally use. So for instance, my father uses this. So this is like my mother uses. But anyway, this is Japanese chopsticks culture. Everything I have shown so far is something you would basically find in a Japanese kitchen all year round. But the interesting part of a Japanese kitchen is not made up of the exact same tools all year long. While some tools appear so naturally when their season comes, and then quickly disappear once that season is over. In other words, Japanese kitchens even have their own seasonal essentials. A very clear example of that is the kakigori machine. It is a tool used to shave ice into a soft, fluffy pile of ice. Then you pour like syrup over it and eat it. But in Japan, it is an extremely classic summer treat that you see everywhere once the weather gets hot. In Japan, home-use kakigori machines are like sold very normal, and making it at home is not unusual at all. So in summer, tools like this comes out to help people, enjoy something cold. And then when the weather turns cold, something completely different begins to appear naturally in Japanese kitchens. I think we don't use it that much nowadays, but this is nabe. It's really traditional nabe, the brown color. Yeah, we've been used like so long, so many years, so it's very old. But what is interesting in Japan is that nabe is not just the name of the cookware, it's also the name of the meal itself. So when someone says, let's have nabe tonight, they are not just talking about using a pot. But pot in Japan is nabe. So they mean like putting ingredient into a pot, heating it on the table, and everyone gathering, around it to eat together. In other words, the word refers to the whole side of dining. And nabe really doesn't start appearing on family tables once the weather gets colder. This is not just a dish for warming your body on a cold day. It's also a very Japanese, winter style of sharing the table with family or friends. And that feeling of gathering around the same thing is not limited to nabe. There are actually so many these kind of unique tools, cooking tools in Japan, but I will introduce two more. Okay, so this one. Alright, so let's start this one. So I'm not sure, it's very heavy, I'm not sure you see it. This is yakiniku plate. It's really interesting. Grilling meat exists in every country, of course. But in Japan, instead of cooking everything in the kitchen and then serving it, it is very natural to place a hot plate on the table and cook the meat right there while eating. So the place where you cook and the place where you eat begin to overlap a little. And what matters here is that instead of each person being handed a fully finished dish, everyone gathers around the same plate in the middle. Each person cooks at their own pace, takes what they want, and eats together. A style like this feels like it is not only about eating, it feels like sharing the same time together has become part of the meal itself. Alright, so another one is, it's so heavy. Alright, another one is this one. This is a takoyaki plate. Takoyaki is a very famous Japanese food made by cooking small balls of butter with place of octopus inside. It's originally known as a specialty of Osaka local food, but now it's also very common to make at home. And what is interesting for me is that once again, this is not just about eating something already finished. It's about everyone gather around the plate and making it together on the spot. You pour in the butter and add the ingredient and slowly turn each piece into a bowl. That whole process is already part of the meal. And sometimes when you are hungry, it's kind of troublesome. But yeah, the same is true of nabe, yakiniku, and takoyaki. Japanese kitchens do not only have tools for cooking efficiently, they also contain tools for sharing one dish together with other people. And maybe that is one of the things that makes the Japanese dining table feel so distinct. So why do Japanese kitchens look so different? The first answer is very obvious that Japanese kitchens strongly reflect a way of eating centered around the rice. That is why there is a space specifically reserved for rice cooker, and even built-in rice storage bins are part of the kitchen itself. For example, seaweed and free cookie seasoning and the grilled fish and fish dishes I mentioned earlier are also very familiar foods in Japan as things to eat with rice. In other words, in Japanese kitchen, it feels more natural to build a meal by starting with rice and then thinking about what to put with it, rather than starting from a single main dish. And when your basic meal structure is there is rice and then what do we eat with it, the number of dishes you prepare also increases. There is a grilled fish as we introduced, soup, miso soup basically, side dishes, and once that happens, the number of plates also increases. And of course, the number of dishes increases, so do the tools as well. So the rice central table is reflected not only in the rice cooker or the rice bin, the basic assumption of preparing multiple dishes to go with rice also connects to the number of dishes in the kitchen and even to the size and function of the sink. And another reason is that in Japan, meals are not seen as something that simply fills your stomach. Eating itself is a purpose everywhere in the world. But in Japan, it often feels like who you eat with and how you eat together matters just as much. And that is expressed the most clearly in foods like nabe, yakiniku, and takoyaki. What these styles of eating have in common is that food is not simply something divided and handed out to individuals. It becomes something shared by everyone. And there is one interesting phrase in Japan: to eat from the same pot of rice. This doesn't simply mean eating the same food, of course. It expresses the idea that spending the same time together and sharing the same experience deepens relationships. That is why Japanese kitchens do not only contain tools for cooking efficiently, but they also contain tools for gathering around one dish and spending time together. And I believe that is the most important factor to make any dishes delicious. Right, so Japanese kitchen look different because this small space directly reflects Japanese way of living and the values behind the dining table. Does your kitchen reflect your lifestyle or food culture in a similar way? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to learn more about Japanese homes and food culture behind any of them, please check out this video as well. Alright, so I'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much for watching.